let's take robots. I see the Lex Friedman interview with, the CEO of Boston Dynamics, and they've got the one little robot dog, and they're going to make him a happy robot dog to be your pet, right? And they just talk about that for 4 hours, okay? And then you go on Twitter, you see a video that's maybe 10 seconds long without any narrative, and it's a warehouse with 1,000 of those robot dogs doing push-ups. And then you go and you see one robot dog with the gun on it, shooting the gun. And then you think, it's kind of hard. We're talking about getting robots to be able to cook our food and be nice to us and, be companions and carry boxes through warehouses and do backflips. That's all hard. But let me tell you what isn't hard. Put a bomb on a robot dog. Right? Like at the end of the day, if you're asking how will the next war be fought, just give me 10,000 robot dogs and put an explosive device on each of the 10,000 dogs. It's too hard to aim the gun. Let's say you're a soldier. Should you be afraid for your job? Like, who wants 100,000 soldiers in the army with guns? And by the way, would you want to be one of those 100,000 soldiers when 27 robot dogs with explosives come walking one at a time toward you?
No.
I've seen that Black Mirror.
Yeah.
You can see there's no future. Like the idea of armies, there's no future to armies. The idea of aircraft with pilots in them, there's no future to that. The Navy, there's no future to a ship with people on it. Yeah, the future is swarms of drones in the air and on land and the sea. And when I say swarms, I'm not going to manufacture one. I'm going to manufacture 100,000 of them. And I'm going to get the manufacturing cost down to $1,000 to $3,000 a thing. And the cost of a pilot in an F-35 is $3 million to train, and the F-35 is a $100 million aircraft. Why not just a $5,000 Switchblade? And why don't I just I could drop 1,000 of them out of the back of a C-135 or a B-50, anything 500 miles away. If you go and you watch drone races, they're sponsored by the U.S. Air Force. Okay, interesting. So the Air Force wants to sponsor drone pilots because it wants to recruit the next generation of drone pilots. But the point I'm getting to is that is even looking antiquated right now. I mean, why wouldn't you just put an AI chip in 18,000 drones and just give them a target or just give them an algorithm? Like every time you see a tank, a tent, a building, a cluster of 10 soldiers with uniforms on, you're done. So every war, you fight the last war. And all this stuff in our world is about fighting the last war, but the next war is something profoundly different. And a lot of it's because of the ability to put digital intelligence into anything.
It also makes the idea of war much more politically palatable, because if there's no human cost to your country, at least, if you're just sending robots, I don't think people will be against the war as much. If it was all robots in Iraq and Afghanistan,
I don't know. It's terrifying if you're on the receiving end of the robots.
Absolutely.
We do a movie about that. Very famous one.
Is this the one I've not seen? Is this Terminator?
Yeah.
He's not seen Terminator.
What are we going to do when Skynet becomes self-aware?
Yeah.
We had it up in a recent interview. I brought up Terminator 3 because that's the moment at the end where he realized there was nothing they could ever have done. This was always going to happen. It's a reality. And we actually put it, I said to Danny last night, it's right, we're going to watch Terminator 1, 2, and 3. We've got to see how this plays out.
I think there's a lot of opportunity. We want to be cheerful and constructive. I'll give you 4 hours of great AI things we could do. But in terms of the threat that I would immediately focus on, it's basically AI-driven bots in cyberspace and AI-driven robots in actual space, right? And the AI-driven robots are a bit behind because it's harder to do. The bots, though, fundamentally, there's no reason why you can't launch millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of bots in cyberspace that will imitate humans. Actually, they will be better humans than the humans are. So I actually believe that to a certain degree, there are many distortions we have in the world today that have been bot-driven. I have observed when I drill down that 95% of the toxicity in my own online experience was bot driven. It was never humans. When there's a malefactor attempting to sow the seeds of civil war, it wasn't a human. What would I do if I wanted to destroy your society? I would convince you that he's going to murder you and convince you that he's going to murder you. And I would do it by distorting reality. And I would just step back and let the two of you fight it out.
Do you think there's a chance with this kind of malignant behavior that could plague the internet that we maybe end up rejecting it and go back to a lot of in-person interactions? Is there hope, potential for that?
It's a very healthy response. And I've had the same thought myself. It's like when you see this, you start thinking that maybe we rely on these things too much.
I mean, we just a small analogy to this would be the podcast during COVID era when everything was remote. I mean, the first time we did an interview was remote. And that was a more efficient way of doing things. And we could make more money and we didn't have to travel. We didn't have the cost. We could also get easier access to bigger guests and more downloads. It was as a business model, it worked better. But we've sacrificed all that and chosen to travel, chosen to have the studio, chosen to rent the thing. And we make 25, 30% less money we can because we know this is better. My only hope is that in some ways it becomes almost unusable, so you just reject it. I can't go into that place anymore.
Go back to the woods with the Playboy magazine.
Yeah.
The future will be some hybrid.
What do you think?
What mix is not clear.
The world you're describing, I find it very hard to come to a place where humans are even needed at all.
That's pretty true.
And I know it's like a topic that's brought up a lot within AI, but what's your view on where it leaves us and what it leaves us?
Well, if the AIs do take over, hopefully they'll like us. I rather think they might run the world better than we do. We'll see. We're approaching the singularity where things can veer in so many different directions. You know, I joked to someone, I feel like I know how the world will end. And it's the other day I woke up and I looked at my iPhone and it said, there's a security update. And you read the description, it says, certain bug fixes and security improvements. And you either install or you don't. But if you don't, every day it asks you to install. So you're going to install it. And I feel like if there ever really was an artificial intelligence and they infiltrated the center of Apple or the center of Google, they would just insert a Trojan horse piece of code into that security update, push it out to 5 billion or 6 billion smartphones, just sit there with a back door for who knows how long. And then one day you just wake up and your phone either just goes blank. Yeah, maybe if it's colorful, if you want some melodramatic meltdown, everybody's phone just turns off. But more likely, you would just see the 100,000 most powerful people in the world. They would just start to send messages to each other, moving money around or launching initiatives or starting wars or whatever they're going to do. And the human race would just get taken along for the ride. If there's any result, it's made me much more passionately committed to Bitcoin. What's the problem with every system in a world of AI? The problem with every system is what you just said, which is the AIs are better than the humans. The humans aren't necessary anymore. So to the extent that there are humans in the loop, whether they're soldiers or pilots or whether or not they're programmers, if the AI gets smarter than us and starts to learn 1,000,000 times faster than us, then every single system with a human in the loop is a weak link. And the struggle we have all the time is, how do we take the humans out of the loop? And Bitcoin is the greatest example of a system constructed so that no humans are in charge. There's no humans to corrupt it, right? You're not trusting Apple. You're not trusting a set of developers. I think that if AI is capable of interfering in the concerns of mankind, then every system that has a human in control of it or has an attack surface via a code update, right, is going to be attacked. So what do you want? You want analog devices that can't be updated. So for example, the swimming pool in your backyard isn't going to get a code update from Tesla. So when the AI takes over, there'll still be water in the swimming pool. And there may still be, potatoes growing, and your horse may still be a horse, and a car with an internal combustion engine without software downloaded from the central system will probably still keep working, and your gun will keep working. So physical things and Bitcoin, the network, will keep working. The things that are going to fail the fastest, the most fragile, are these systems that get continually updated. And it's a reason why I think the concept of ossification is more important than ever. The things that work well in the universe, if we think about the world, it's like the speed of sound and the speed of light are constant, right? The laws of thermodynamics, the laws of gravitation, attraction, they're constant. No one fixes them or improves them every month. There are no security updates to the universe. That's why the universe works. No one has changed the rate at which the sun converts mass into energy. And so natural law is constant and stable. And the result is that things that are based on it are natural and healthy by our standards. And now when you look at man-made things, right, there are certain things that are stable that will probably continue to work even, after the AIs melt everything. They're kind of off the grid. And the stuff that's on the grid, you just can't rely on any of it. And you can't rely on any human being to make the decision. So oftentimes with regard to Bitcoin, you ask me, what do I want? Like, don't change it. Like, I don't want to, don't change it, right? Just leave it alone. Like math, the protocol.
Well, what if you've got some malignant AI core devs that are anonymous, that we can't prove who they are, so they stay anonymous, and spend some time getting to know the other core devs, propose a BIP that gets approved, and it's a malignant attack.
And that's why you don't want to have centrally downloading, self-updating software.
Yeah.
Like most of the software on your iPhone right now is just self-updating in the background. You don't even know it updated. So the question really becomes like, how secure are all these organizations? How secure are these governmental agencies, and how secure are these banks? How many people would it take in any given company to see super user privileges or have root access control, right? And what is the process? The danger is if there are 3 people and they can jointly decide to do it, then I can come up with lots of ways to lever, spoof, coerce, co-opt the 3 people. That's why we know no central counterparty is trustworthy, right? The theoretical reason why no bank is trustworthy, no company is trustworthy, no counterparty is trustworthy, because they're all run by people. What's trustworthy is gravity. If you lean back in your chair and, I can guarantee you will fall over, and I can guarantee you that someone in the Himalayas that never had a college education will also fall. It is completely trustworthy. And because it's trustworthy, you can build a machine based on gravity. I can create skis that will work in the Himalayas or in America because I know the physical qualities of snow and gravity, right? And no one's going to change it. So Bitcoin, to the extent that it's physical, you can build a machine on it because you can trust it. You would never want to be in a situation where the Bitcoin nodes were getting auto updated and someone's auto pushing, right? The truth is that at some point, the developers will come up with an idea which is iatrogenic, right? I personally tend to be of the belief that the only real interesting use case for changing Bitcoin core code is when there's a bug that is crippling and we all understand it and agree it's a bug, or when there's a fatal threat. And we build consensus that there's a fatal threat that will burn the network to zero. And if there's a fatal, call it a fatal bug or a fatal attack surface that forms 50 years from now or whenever it does, then I suppose you might dispatch people to change protocol. But changing the protocol for functionality or performance or to make it sexier or, bells and whistles and this, all those things are just profoundly dangerous, I think. And the idea in the crypto ecosystem, which this is not strong in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is probably the most conservative, right?
Yeah.
But the idea you see in the other proof of stake networks, right, where it's just routine, we'll do a hard fork, we got a roadmap. The idea that we have to keep upgrading and keep changing things, that itself is pernicious. And it's going to be more pernicious in the world of AI, because what that says is you've got an application, but you don't have truth or integrity or the base layer. And if you're going to build a machine, you need to build a machine based on natural law that is invariant. And it stands to reason that Bitcoin is the only network in cyberspace that runs without human intervention that's secure. Then probably the only way to create anything else that's secure in cyberspace is to integrate it with Bitcoin. You know, there's this phrase, Bitcoin fixes this. You know, I'm of the opinion that Bitcoin fixes everything. Right? I think Bitcoin is a solution to every city, every state, every country, every corporation, every network, every application, every product. There's a way to embed Bitcoin in it that makes it better. And I think right now, the one thing Bitcoin does is it gives you this immutable, immortal ledger that's shared. It gives you a form of integrity and truth, a physical presence. So you have a good idea, public-private key cryptography. Okay, so you spin up a public key and a private key and you create a Nostr account. That's good, but the problem with that is my AI can create 1 billion Nostr accounts. How long did it take you to create your Nostr account? Took you like 20 minutes, and then it takes you 20 minutes to post every day. My AI created 20 billion Nostr accounts, and it posts 20 billion times as frequently as you. And it's actually more entertaining and more charismatic than you are. And so maybe I'm just going to warp reality, because what you've got is you've got something in cyberspace, but there's no thermodynamic materiality to it or thermodynamic conservativeness to it. So you want to fix it. You have to combine the idea of the public-private key with a transaction on the Bitcoin network. You do one transaction, you showed me you spent $1. Okay, well now you billionaire Nostr bots cost you $1 billion. And when I find out that you're a Nostr bot and I block you, it costs you $1. So there's a cost and there's a consequence. I think the most stunning thing right in front of our face is the Satoshi phenomena, and it's this. Satoshi's got $30 billion of Bitcoin sitting on that blockchain, and we can see it in the form of 1 million coins. And we know that Satoshi could digitally sign a message and prove that he, she, they exist, and they control that money. And they could do it quickly. And we know that for 14 years, there's been a multi-billion-dollar reward to anybody that could hack that.
Still there.
So what about this? What if I actually want to create an orange check where I basically have a public key burned into the Bitcoin blockchain with one transaction, but then I create a green check, which is I've actually got that transaction attached to 1 million Satoshis, and then a proof of reserve for identity. And then what if I do a blue check with 100 million Satoshis? And what if I do a purple check and it's tied to an account with 100 Bitcoin? And now you've got a hierarchy of identity, and you can now build a hierarchy of security and cost and consequence. And you could layer that sort of idea into all of these other systems, the Facebooks, the Apples, the Googles, the Microsofts. And I think what's special about Bitcoin is they've combined the Bitcoin community. They understand proof of work. So they've got physical energy, analog energy. They've combined it with digital energy in the form of the SHA-256 hashing. So they've got digital power there. Actually, what I meant was, compute power plus analog energy gives you digital power. So we've got this concept of digital power, and it's the most powerful network. We also have the concept of public and private key cryptography implemented. We've also got a third concept, which you went ad infinitum about in a number of your interviews, on multi-sig. And multi-sig and multi-factor and digital hardware signing devices, right? And if you look at the things people are struggling with in this world, we're struggling with how do we actually secure a system? And the answer is probably some combination of multi-signature physical signing devices, real world presence of energy, and then computer power that is defensible. Like if the AI took over all of Google, Facebook, and Apple, I'm comfortable that they still can't stop the Bitcoin network. And that's, if they took it over on one day, every single thing turned to attack the Bitcoin network, no amount of intellect allows you to brute force it, because it literally is a brute force defense. And so cryptography is brute force. 350 exahash is brute force. 15 gigawatts is brute force. Right now, what Satoshi created was the world's hardest money. Yeah. The world's greatest decentralized network. Yeah. The first decentralized network. Yeah. But Satoshi also showed us that I can prove authenticity to the entire world instantly, and I can defend something worth billions or tens of billions or hundreds of billions against a brute force attack. And that actually offers the promise not just of fixing the money, but it actually offers the promise of securing cyberspace, because I think at some point we'd like to see all these people that have control of these enterprise systems. We'd like to see their privilege checked by something in the physical world, like multi-signature, thermodynamically sound authentication network. And you can do it. You could implement orange checks on Twitter, where everybody that wanted to post on Twitter needed to do a Bitcoin transaction once in their life, and you completely change the way people think. But I'm personally interested in the enterprise applications for enterprise security.